It's often been said that an organization's scarcest resource is the time of its CEO. And we believe that's true. I mean, everybody wants a little bit of the CEO's time. Everybody wants a little piece of you, and you can't give everybody the time they want. So how you divvy up your time really is an organization's scarcest resource. How a CEO, or the optimum way for a CEO to spend their time, is a much studied, much discussed, and somewhat controversial subject in the management literature. We have our opinion. That's what I'm going to present to you here. The first thing to say about our opinion, however, is that there are some areas constituting about 55% of your time that we think you need to focus on, and there are other areas constituting about 45% of your time that you just need to spend time on. It's not so much that you need to focus on those areas, it's just they occupy your time because they do. So, obviously I can't draw, so bear with me here. We believe that the majority of a CEO's time, the primary area that a CEO should focus on, is spending time with customers. Now, by spending time with customers, we do not mean executive selling. There's a place for executive selling in many businesses. That's not what we're talking about. That's over here somewhere in the 45%. This is just spending time with your customers, understanding how they use your product, how they use your competitor's product, how they use your class of product, and how they might use a different class of product that will impinge on the sales of your class or your type of product. You need to understand this from a business level. You're the only person in your organization that understands the entire organization. You're the only person that understands your strategy, your operations, your human resources, your product development, your marketing, your financial strategy, your capital structure, all that stuff. That all comes together with you. And because an organization exists in order to sell things to customers, because an organization exists in order to align their capabilities with the needs of customers, you're the person that understands your organization in its entirety. So you're the only person that can really understand how that organization, your organization, plugs in to what your customers are doing. So your time with customers is just spent listening. Don't sell. If you get the urge to sell, shut up and listen instead. Now, who in your customer's organization ought you be talking to or spending time with? That varies. We suggest it be the highest level person in your customer's organization that gives any thought whatsoever to the class of product that you sell. If you're the CEO of IBM, you're probably going to want to spend time with the CEO of your very large customers, your very large manufacturing or insurance customers. If, however, you are a distributor of commodity industrial goods like nuts and bolts, you're not going to be spending time with the CEO of General Motors, but you're going to be spending time with somebody in the General Motors organization, the highest level person that thinks about nuts and bolts. So get in at the highest level you can, because what you're looking for from your customer's point of view is their business level view about you. Now, this is not something that the people you might think spend time with customers can tell you. This isn't rather something they can do. Your product managers, your salespeople, your marketing people, they don't have the ability to take the entire business level view of your organization and plug it into the entire business level view of your customer's organization. Only you can do that. And over the last bunch of decades, organizations like Walmart, where the CEO spends a ton of time with customers, have been very successful, we believe, for that reason. So 25 to 30% of your time with customers, not selling, but listening. Now, about another 10% of your time should be spent on strategy. Strategy is sort of by definition, your corporate strategy is by definition one of the jobs of top management. That doesn't need much saying. It shouldn't occupy a huge amount of your time, but about 10%, because it's such an important job and because it's a job that you need to be intimately involved with. And obviously, a poor strategy is going to lead you to poor results over the long term, so 10% of your time. Another 10% of your time should be spent, we believe, on designing, implementing, and managing your marketing process. And by marketing, we mean marketing with a big M. We mean marketing that starts with understanding the market, understanding the competitors, understanding your customers, understanding where these things are going, and developing the strategies to make you successful, developing the strategies that allow your organization to align its capabilities with the needs of the customer. This is really the core of how your company, how your firm serves its customers. The marketing process is the central feature of your organization that creates that alignment between your capability and your customers' needs. So developing this, implementing it, and managing it needs to occupy a dedicated part of your time, and we suggest about 10%. Now, the product development function, we also believe, should occupy about 10% of your time, because it's the product development function integrated with the marketing process function that creates the products and services that serves the customers. So because it's so important that you create the right products and services, that you do that correctly, that should command another 10% of your time or so. So these are the 4 areas that we believe ought to constitute roughly 55% of your time. These are the 4 areas we believe that you need to focus on. Now that leaves 45% of your time to do other things, things that just occupy your time, things that just demand your time because they do. We don't really have an opinion as to how you ought to slice up this 45% because it depends on your industry and the particular characteristics of your business within that industry. But we have some suggestions, we have some observations. To begin with, human resources ought to occupy a fair amount of your thought. It ought to be something you worry about. It's a rare business these days for which their human capital, their intellectual capital, isn't really their primary competitive advantage. I mean, yes, there are still some businesses for which, manufacturing operations or access to capital or maybe access to raw materials is the source of competitive advantage. But most businesses these days rely on their human capital to make a profit and to make them successful. So spending time populating your company with the right people is obviously critically important. You can't succeed without it. If you see talented people leaving your firm at a rate even approaching the industry average, that ought to worry you. So you need to dig down, spend some time, understand why that is, and fix it. Clearly, finance is an area that a CEO needs to spend time on. I mean, the object of understanding how your firm aligns with customers, serving those customers, the whole point of that, the topmost objective of an organization, is to make a financial return for its owners, its shareholders. And so, by definition, finance has to occupy a fair amount of your time. How much time varies. It shouldn't need to be huge. I mean, you shouldn't be digging down trying to solve financial problems, because finance and financial structure and the things that make that possible are fairly well understood. You hire good people to do that. Understanding things like capital structure, particularly big changes in capital structure, are obviously something that do need to occupy your time. But spending time on finance, making sure you're getting the results and managing the results and reporting the results correctly, clearly has to occupy some of your time. Operations is probably going to need to occupy some of your time too, just because operations are what is going on every day. However, big warning here, a big flag, which is that operations should in general be managed by exception. If you're spending a lot of time, if you're always being pulled away to solve some problem or manage something in your operational field, you probably have a badly designed operational processes or set of processes, or you have the wrong people managing operations. It shouldn't occupy a lot of your time. It should run fairly smoothly. You should run it by exception, but it still requires some of your time. In addition to all of these things that occupy your time, whether you're focusing on them or just spending time on them, make sure you allow yourself to have some free time. I think it was Bill Hewlett at Hewlett-Packard that coined the expression management by walking around. And there is something to that. We suggest that you simply spend some free time walking around the operations of your enterprise. Whether it's at the executive level, whether it's at lower levels, but stick your nose in to the enterprise at various points. Talk to people, see how they're doing, see what their morale is, because that obviously relates back to human resource strategies. See if you get a sense of things running smoothly or not smoothly. You will be amazed what you'll find out just by walking around and talking to people in your organization. It's a critical way to find out if everything else you're doing is kind of running smoothly. So take this under advisement, map this against the way you spend your own time, see if it makes sense. What we strongly encourage you to do, if you do nothing else, is take a year. If you aren't spending 25 to 30% of your time with customers, tell yourself you're going to do that for the next year. At the end of the year, evaluate whether it has paid you dividends or not, and we bet it will.